You're now listening to the Diversity Roundtable. I'm Pamela Xaba, entrepreneur, inclusion enthusiast, and the founder of Nonkosi Creatives with over 2 decades as a corporate HR professional. My goal is to give you insights into conversations with entrepreneurs and corporate professionals who have insightful stories of triumph and leadership. I uncover my personal journey from cultivating diversity and promoting inclusive communities. We'll also find out why building a prosperous society is vital for leadership roles. Subscribe and get ready to rise, lead, and help define the spirit of South African excellence. We are back with our second guest. We are shooting right here in Durban at Capital Zimbali with Momentum Metropolitan Holdings that have invited us to witness the wonderful work that they do with women in farming in KZN. So today we have Dr. Kathy Hurly, who is a board member at AgriSA, AgriEnterprises, as well as Gwanalu. Welcome. How are you, Dr. Kathy?
Thank you. Very, very happy that we're getting some rain.
Yes, we need the rain.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I think let's get into it,
Yes.
right? So we've got 10 minutes. Let us in a bit into your personal space, who you are. Like I said earlier, this channel is really geared to give access to our young people, young professionals across South Africa. So just let us in about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the discussion about why we are here. Over to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Pamela. So definitely not a young professional anymore. You can clearly see that from the colour of my hair, but effectively been involved in agriculture since I was at university many years ago. Started off at university doing agricultural industrial projects, mainly looking at the botanical side, plants that we could grow in marginal areas, plants that we could grow for revenue, particularly revenue into the country. And then I spent the next part of my life, about 25 years, in the sugar industry. So sugar is sweet and one must continue adding it to your cups. So make sure you have at least 1 spoon of sugar in your tea or in your coffee every day. When I retired, I then said, well, what was my passion and what did I love most about my life up to then? And decided that probably the best thing that I could do was to continue with agriculture. Agriculture is extremely broad, so now you've got to decide, okay, what part of agriculture do I focus on? And what did I love in the sugar industry, working with my small-scale sugarcane farmers? And what did they need the most? Entrepreneurial skills, technical skills. And so I then decided, well, let me focus on rural entrepreneurship and let me focus on what we can do in the agricultural value chain. That was 2021. And guess what happened in 2021? First of all, followed COVID. Secondly, we had some riots. Then we had some floods. Well, now we've had some snow. But essentially, that 2021 was all about rebooting. And after we had sorted out the humanitarian crisis because of those July riots, we then decided, and this was from Kwanalu's perspective in KwaZulu-Natal, to say, what can we set up that's going to help our rural towns in terms of rural economies, women empowerment, and how do we strengthen the agricultural value chain? And that's when women and youth and rural entrepreneurship began. We call it WIRE, and I essentially have led that program for the last couple of years.
Sure. Thank you so much. You walked quite a journey, right? So I'm just so sad that we've got limited time, but I know that, in the near future, we'll have time to engage with you at length, right? But for now, what is Gwanalu? Okay, can you just tell us what that is? I know that there's AgriSA, AgriEnterprises, but I'm also just curious about the Gwanalu bit. What is that?
So effectively, it's very difficult to run agriculture and be able to lobby and advocate government about policy if you don't have some kind of organization. So AgriSA is basically, along with other organizations, it has all the provinces become members of AgriSA, and Kwanalu basically represents organized agriculture in this province.
Okay.
So they lobby for things like electricity, water, etc., as well as the big issues, of course, of land, expropriation, etc.
Yes.
So they are not only focused, as they were in the olden days, on commercial farmers,
Yes.
but they also look and are growing the emerging farmer sector as well,
Yes.
so that we can transform the agricultural sector
Yes.
to be able to hold its head high one day in our country and say we are transformed.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. So now I'm starting to connect the dots, right? So and then the work that you do, a board member, right? AgriSA and AgriEnterprises. So and then you got involved with Momentum in Metropolitan Holdings and then with Umgibe Farming. Can you just talk about that? Talk to us about that value chain.
So I was I was at the stage in terms of an AgriSA board member.
Yeah.
AgriSA created a company called AgriEnterprises. They then pitched a project to the Momentum board at that stage. They're now Momentum group board, foundation board. But at that stage, they pitched a project which they won, which then ended up being the project that we're celebrating today, 3 years later.
Yes.
And in all of those activities, I had a very good relationship with Marjoy. And I was able to connect all of the parts so that Gibi could come in, AgriSA Enterprises, and all the partners work together with Momentum.
Yes. No, thank you so much. This is like really, really valuable information. And I'm just particularly grateful and honored and blessed to just have the privilege to sit with you and have this discussion and give access to our communities, to people like yourself that they wouldn't ordinarily have an opportunity to talk to about just the wonderful work that you do. So I think to our communities and people that are listening then to this discussion, and so what support do you give, and where do they go in terms of access to information about what you do, and if they're interested in getting involved, so we might have people in our communities that have access to land, that have access to certain skills, but then how do they actually then get in a structured stream to actually get involved? So what support can they get?
So essentially what Kwanalu is able to do is that they bring in emerging farmers onto a digital platform, because that's the easiest way to do it nowadays.
Yes.
And then we're able to cluster groups according to various projects. So we're obviously interested not only in crops, but we are interested in livestock. We've got a rural a livestock safety workshop that we're planning during the course of October. We look at financial services, what's possible. So we're really a conveyor of information, and then afterwards, if people are interested, we continue educating and training. So because they're in agriculture, the Kwanalu group essentially also has a lot of technical skills to share, but they are a facilitator and a gathering and bringing of the dots together. Once, for example, people who are interested in a certain area are able to bring themselves together into a cluster, making it much easier for us to work with them. It's always a challenge to have one person, and you'll see with this project today, there's somebody in Richards Bay, there's somebody up there in Escort, there's someone down there in Marion Hill. It's always difficult to work with individuals, but if you can cluster a group of interested individuals together in a certain area, it makes working with that group less costly, and you can work more effectively with them. So that's basically what Kwanalu does. It's got a lovely website that people can go to if they are interested. They're on Instagram, on Twitter, X, etc. So everybody nowadays, you can see by my hair twittering away. So exactly. So there are a lot of opportunities to get involved, and we slowly want to grow an association of emerging farmers who are able to lobby and advocate for themselves. Because at the end of the day, government is government. They need to provide certain services to the farmers of our country. It doesn't matter who they are, what size they are, etc. And that's the kind of relationship that we would like to build, so that especially women in farming stand up for themselves, advocate for what they need, and be able to be heard.
No, thank you so much. And I know that we only have 10 minutes, so I think we're almost there in the 2 minutes that we have left. So we've got other provinces throughout
Yes.
South Africa. So now we are in KZN. So what is the footprint, in other provinces? If you don't have a footprint, so how does the entire AgriSA, AgriEnterprises connect the ecosystem throughout the provinces that we have in the country?
Okay, so generally in the other provinces, what AgriSA does, it has three classes of members.
Yeah.
It's got provincial members, it has commodities, and it has corporates.
Okay.
So in the other provinces generally, and as well as KZN, the sugar industry being a good example, transformation and activities in farming happen through the various commodities.
Yes.
They're able to access resources for interested parties and then able to deliver their own training, their own technical stuff so that people can become part of a commodity.
Yes. Then obviously people have to meet certain criteria, right? Because it's all good and well to say, yes, I'm interested in farming, so now let me phone up AgriSA, So just maybe, one or two pointers in terms of criteria that people need to have at least as a start, like the basics. So if I say, I am Pamela, I'm interested in farming, where do I start?
Yes. So the first thing that is critical is obviously access to land, so that you're able to either have your family land or you're able to rent your family land from somebody, and secondly, water. So basically, without the land to grow in, or a greenhouse, or something where you can grow whatever you want to grow, and water if you're wanting to do crops, any kind of crops. Alternatively, I love livestock, so we can always say, have you got enough land to be able to manage your veld and to grow cattle, sheep, goats, doesn't matter, everything's tasty at the end of the day, etc. And then of course poultry is very popular now. So poultry, whether you're going to grow poultry for meat, in other words a broiler, or you're going to grow poultry, you're going to have poultry for layers. That's the most wonderful way for each one of us to get the nutrition we need. In terms of 2 eggs a day is all the protein we need. And so layers and eggs will always be in demand. So you need to think about what kind of farming would you like to do. Have you got the infrastructure? Have you got the land? Have you got the water? And then we at Kwanalu generally love startups. But there are many organizations that want to start with people who are farmers who are further down the line. So we would look at raising funds and helping people to get started, or linking them to organizations in their areas where they can start up. But it's not difficult to start up in agriculture. If you've got your land and you've got your water, get some seeds going. I even do it at home. And start your spinach and start your cabbages and see whether you've got that love and that knack of growing that you can then exploit, and you'll put your passion into becoming commercial.
So how would you encourage other, corporates, to get involved, So because I know that through Momentum and Metropolitan Holdings, there's only so much that you can do. So I imagine that maybe you, through the board of AgriSA and AgriEnterprises, you work with other corporates as well. But then for those corporates that, they have access to funds for their CSI, initiatives, and how would they get involved? And then maybe also just explaining to our young people that are not familiar with the term CSI. Let's start there. And then what is CSI, number one? And then number two, how do we encourage other corporates to get involved in farming and supporting up-and-coming entrepreneurs in this space?
So what I would say to a corporate is that we need food. We need food. We need food every single day of our lives. So if you're going to have different segments in agriculture, you're going to find that eventually your very big scale commercial guys are going to want to look to export. Then you've got to say to yourself, well, how does the gap get filled then if a lot of our crops, etc., are going out? How do we fill that gap? Who's going to fill that gap? Well, it'll have to be our newcomers coming into agriculture. If you think about where our rural areas, where our towns are situated in rural areas, and for anybody who hasn't been on the back roads of KZN, do yourself a favor, get in your car, not when it's snowing, get in your car and go onto the back roads and have a look at how many of our people in this province live beyond those main roads. And once you see that, inside, you'll know that every one of them have to be fed on a daily basis. So food is critical, and food has to be produced. And so what we're then doing is saying to our corporates, well, if food has to be produced, and if we can lower the cost of food to our people by making sure it's happening in rural areas and deep rural areas, rather than having to go to a retailer in town to buy, let's do that. Let's focus on reducing the cost and making sure the food's available. Once those guys in those rural areas grow to scale, then off they go to the market. Could be a retailer, it could be an old-fashioned market. And then once we've got those guys scaled beyond that, then it's the export market. So what we're really saying to the corporates of our country, invest in food, invest in the future of our children. Malnutrition is another difficult issue that we have to deal with. Let's feed them spinach, let's feed them cabbages, let's feed them what they should be eating. And let's use those corporate social investment funds, CSR, to good purpose. Pamela.
Yes, just like thank you so much. I have no further questions for you, but thank you so much for your time and just really educating us and educating our young people and our viewers and our listeners. So I think just last words of encouragement. Here's your lens there, talking to our from a social political landscape to our young people, right? So what would you say?
So I would say to our young people out there, we have recently, in fact today is the last day of a project that I've been involved in managing. It's our last day, our report's been given to our funder. And with as little as 10,000 Rand per young person, we were able to transform lives, and the lives of those young people will never change. But what I want to say even more importantly is that people sometimes doubt the youth. Never doubt the youth. Don't doubt yourselves. Don't let anyone doubt you. The passion and the commitment and the discipline and the desire to be able to make really rich lives in our rural areas is possible. And it can start with agriculture. And for that, I love you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you
Pleasure.
for gracing us with your presence, and we have this relationship and we are not letting you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Pamela.
much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.
Yes.
Franklin Covey South Africa actually does is really around leadership development.
Okay.
And developing leaders at all levels, instilling greatness, instilling habits of effectiveness in people, which I thought, it's funny how the universe works. To your point, that when you get into certain spaces, you then start attracting like-minded people. You start attracting those things that you really needed, because what I really needed at that time to boost my confidence and to boost my self-esteem, again, because as you can understand, coming out of a corporate environment, then you're on your own. Sometimes your self-esteem can take you a knock, right? And I was like, oh, okay, actually there's someone who believes that, someone who holds such a big brand, they believe that I'm doing great work. But what also stood out for me was, I really needed to polish up my leadership, some of my leadership traits as well, in terms of letting go of some of self-limiting habits, self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting behaviors. How do I show up in my full self? And the more I got into the Franklin Covey content, it's, when you get those aha moments, and you get that thing that says, you know what, I'm in the right space. And I'm just really particularly excited that, more and more people then will get to, experience the great work that Franklin Covey does, because it really, one is a confidence booster. Yes, that's what it has done for me, because people are like, oh, actually you associated with this big brand. Yeah, then immediately that lifts your self-esteem, that lifts your confidence, but also knowing that I can help other people, right, who may be